All right, so I've had a couple of weeks now with the new 2022 Nissan Frontier, and I'm going to give you my initial thoughts as I always do. As a guy who has experience with just about every truck and every Jeep that's on sale in the US right now, here's my opinion on it. So let's start with some of the positives, some of the things that I really like about this truck, and then we'll talk about some of the things that they probably should work on a little more, and we'll kind of summarize it at the end. So let's talk about the engine. I think that this engine is awesome. It seems to have really good torque. Now, I realize that, if you look at the numbers on paper, it's listed at 281, which these days is not groundbreaking in the midsize segment. I mean, after all, the Colorado and the Jeep Gladiator both have turbo diesel options that make lots of torque. The Ford Ranger has the EcoBoost engine that makes over 300 pound-feet. So on paper, the torque output on this engine is not in any way class leading or even close to being class leading. But I'm going to tell you something. I've been towing this utility trailer around quite a bit, and this thing actually feels pretty good. I mean, if you're pulling up of say a moderate hill, a little bit of a grade, it will actually hold gear and pull that hill without downshifting, which is pretty impressive. So, I mean, I think even at 281, the fact that it makes so much horsepower, 310 horsepower is putting it up at the top of the list. And the overall power output on this engine is pretty good. I have no complaints about the power output at all. So I really like the V6. I like the fact that, yes, it's a direct injection engine, which is kind of unfortunate because in the real world, direct injection doesn't do anything positive for you at all. I don't care what all the papers will tell you. In the real world, you're not going to get better fuel economy or any other real benefits from it. And it does tend to give you some disadvantages because it runs a little bit dirtier. It can coke up, the internals with carbon buildup and that kind of thing. So it's unfortunate that they went direct injection, but still, this engine is really simple compared to a turbo diesel, compared to a gasoline turbo engine. This is still a very simple design. It's easy to work on. If you keep this truck long term and you get beyond the warranty period, it's going to be easy to work on. Obviously, you don't have to work on it right now because it's new and it's under warranty. But I'm just saying, if you think ahead, the way they've got this packaged in here is really nice. The battery's right here. You can see your power steering reservoir, your coolant, your brake fluid. Everything is easy to see, easy to get to. Your fuses are right here. Air filter is easy to get to. So, I mean, the way that they package this, it's not real tight. It's not compressed and shoehorned in here. It's packaged nicely. It's a good, simple V6 engine. And like I said, Nissan has a track record of making some of the best V6 engines in the business. So I have no doubts that this thing will go the distance and will last somebody for a very, very long time. So I'm pretty happy with the powertrain and the 9-speed auto that it's hooked up to. I think the more that I drive it, it's getting a little smoother. These engines and transmissions, these days they've got adaptive learning built into them. And so the more you drive them, the more it'll kind of learn your driving habits and it'll adjust to that on the fly. And it does feel like the transmission's getting a little smoother. I'm pretty happy with it overall. It's got a lot of transmission braking, engine braking, which I talked about in the other video. So that's good for when you're towing a trailer, but just around town and out on the highway, it feels good. It's responsive. It doesn't lag. It shifts firm and precise. And overall, I'm just pretty happy with the powertrain. So good job, Nissan. So for a long time, one of the metrics that people use to kind of gauge the quality of a vehicle is shutting the door. The thunk sound that you hear when you shut the door, sometimes that can kind of tell you how the automaker really designed the vehicle, what kind of effort they put into it, the level of engineering and quality that goes into the vehicle can kind of be determined by what it feels like when you close the door. And I have to say that closing the door on this vehicle is very satisfying. I mean, this thing kind of reminds me of the Jeep Gladiator in the way that the doors, they seem to seal off really well. There's not a lot of like give or looseness, you know, the way that it latches and the seal, all the weather seals around the door, you know, they come together. This is really hard to explain, but it just feels like that the door seals off like a vault. As soon as you close the door, you can just tell that everything mates up and meshes together perfectly. I mean, this just has a feel of quality to it. It really does. You know, the fit and finish on this vehicle looks really nice to me for a pickup truck. I mean, you could go around it and try to nitpick it, but overall, I feel like that the body panels are good and thick. I mean, if you tap around on the vehicle, you go around and kind of give it the tap test, you know, you can feel that the body sheet metal is really thick and solid, and it just feels good. It looks really nice. Seems to be a high quality exterior. I think they've come a long way on the paint finish. This is one of the areas where for a long time Nissan failed miserably, was the paint. They had really thin clear coat, really thin base coat. You could look at a Nissan vehicle the wrong way and it would scratch. But I think that on the 22 Frontier, they've come a long way, and it seems to be a little better. Of course, time will tell, but I mean, just feeling it and looking at it, it looks like the paint job is a little bit more robust and done, you know, in a better fashion than what it used to be. So, I mean, the overall quality on this vehicle seems really good. And like I said, time will tell, but I'm pretty happy with the exterior. So we've already talked at length about how I feel like the console design is probably the best in the business right now. They've done a great job of using and maximizing their space. And I like how you do have power outlets and USB back here for anybody who does dare to get into this back seat and ride. So the interior redesign is nice. I wish they would have worked on the structure of the cab so that they could put more comfort in these back seats. But the look and overall design is fantastic. Good job, Nissan. So basically the truck is a really nice looking truck. The powertrain in it is great. It's fuel efficient, it's very powerful. I believe that it's simplistic enough that it'll last for a long time. You'll be able to keep this on the road forever. It doesn't have the fancy start-stop technology with multiple batteries, and it doesn't have a hybrid system on it with wiring and batteries everywhere. It's just your basic run-of-the-mill pickup truck with a great solid V6 engine, a 9-speed auto. It's traditional, but that's a good thing. You know, the KISS principle applies here when we're talking about pickup trucks. So, you know, good build quality, economical. You get a lot of nice features for the price tag. I mean, you're hard pressed to get a brand new crew cab, 4-wheel drive pickup truck with all of these safety features and tech for $40,000 these days. In fact, I don't really know of any other company doing that right now. You know, if you try to do an apples to apples comparison. So there's definitely some positives here with the Nissan Frontier, obviously, which is why I brought one home. But now let's talk about a few things that are kind of disappointing. And I hope Nissan is watching, and I hope that they will take this to heart and work on some of these things, because they should have done it for this model year. So let's just kind of go through a few things that I'm disappointed in. Now, the first one, well, let me unlock the truck first. That's awesome. The proximity entry, fantastic. You notice I didn't even have to reach for the keys. That is a cool feature. But anyway, one of the things that I'm kind of disappointed in is the complete lack of space. Now, granted, I'm a fairly good sized guy, standing about 6'2", 6'3" with my boots on. But when I get in here and sit behind myself, I mean, there's just no leg room. Can't even pinch my fingers between my knees in the back of the seat. I can't bring my knees together. I kind of have to push them out and sit like this. My head, I've got a little bit of headroom, but not much. And the seat back is almost totally vertical. It's almost like sitting up against a concrete wall. Now, granted, like I said, I'm a pretty good sized guy. And I figure that most people who buy these trucks probably aren't going to have full-size men in the back. But then again, when you're buying a crew cab truck, you're buying a crew cab because you plan to haul people. And so I'm really disappointed that they didn't take this as a golden opportunity to extend the cab a little bit. You know, there's so much space up there in the front of the vehicle, up there in the nose of the truck. There's a lot of space. They could have taken just a few inches of that space and put it back here, and it would have made the rear seat comfort so much nicer. So if you've got a family and you're going to haul some adolescents or teenagers, this is going to be something you're going to have to definitely test drive and take your family with you when you do the test drive. Make sure it's going to work for you. But yeah, I mean, the rear seat comfort is just not very good back here in the Nissan Frontier. And I have sat in some other midsize trucks that are a little nicer back here, honestly. The Ford Ranger has a little bit more space as far as, you know, the way that the seat is angled and just the comfort level. You know, the knee room's about the same, but the comfort level is improved because of the way they designed everything. The Honda Ridgeline's got a lot more space. So there are definitely some better options out there than the Nissan when it comes to sitting back here in the rear seat, but at least it is better than the Toyota Tacoma. All right, so my second biggest complaint with this truck is the steering. Now, this is kind of a weird thing because I have actually talked to some people who like the steering on this truck. Here's what I will tell you. The steering on this Nissan Frontier is very different from what you're going to experience with every other mid-size 4x4 on the market. All right, most companies these days have adopted the much more fuel efficient and much simpler electronic power steering. This one, for some reason, has stuck with the old-fashioned hydraulic steering. So what that means is it's not as efficient. The steering feels really heavy also. Sometimes when you're driving at low speed through a parking lot, for example, it doesn't even feel like it has power steering. It takes a lot of effort. If you're a woman or a smaller guy, you're probably not going to do the one-handed steering in a parking lot. You're going to have to use two hands. It's very heavy steering, and it takes a 1/4 acre of land to circle this truck around, turn it around. The steering ratio is a little bit slow, so it's not as responsive out on the road. And like I said, if you're trying to turn the truck around, you're going to have to do a 3-point turn because the turning radius on this truck is almost non-existent. So I'm not really sure what the Nissan engineers were thinking when they designed this truck. I mean, the previous generation had this problem, and with the new 22, the same thing is still there. And I guess it's just a product of the fact that this is really not an all-new truck. They might call it an all-new truck, but it's not an all-new truck. The chassis and suspension and basically the meat and bones of this truck is the same as the second-gen prior generation truck. You'll notice that you also don't get LED forward lighting. You have to go to the premium package or step on up to the Pro 4X to get LED forward lighting. So even with the tech package and the convenience package on this mid-level trim, you still get saddled with these halogen headlights and fog lights. It's not a huge deal because you can go to a vendor like Headlight Revolution, for example, and spend a few $100 and get some really sweet bulbs that you can retrofit into these housings and have your sweet LED output with great beam patterns. But it's one of those things that would have been really nice if they included it, you know, on this particular trim level with these packages. I think you should have gotten some LED lights up here. Something else that annoys the crap out of me is, okay, I've got the engine running and the radio is on, right? Well, every other truck out there right now, every Jeep out there right now has what they call accessory delay. So when you turn the vehicle off, the radio will stay on for a predetermined amount of time. And sometimes you can even set what that time is. It might stay on for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But let's say you're listening to a really cool song and you pull into your driveway and you just want to finish that song up, but you don't want to keep the engine running and burn fuel. You can just shut the truck off and you can keep listening to the radio for a little while. I mean, that's just a standard thing these days, but not on the Nissan. Watch what happens when you turn off the Nissan truck. everything goes black. You don't get the radio anymore. Now you can go ahead and hit the button again if you want to and turn on the accessory. So it's not a major problem, but it sure would have been nice if they just made this automatic. And the other thing about it is that when you turn the radio back on with the push button once again, it doesn't give you much time. This thing really tries to shut itself down. It might run for just a couple of minutes and it'll start flashing warnings on the screen that it's going to turn off automatically again. It doesn't give you much time, and there's no setting for allowing it to stay on for longer either. So that's just one of those little nitpicky things that's really annoying. Something else that's annoying about this truck is there's no telescoping steering wheel, which is also kind of a standard thing on trucks these days. Now you can tilt the wheel up and down, but there's no telescoping feature on this steering wheel. So if you're a taller guy like me, I set the seat way back so I'm comfortable, but then I would like to be able to pull the steering wheel back also, and you can't do that. So you have to reach out. You can see how my arms are like straight out to get to the steering wheel. And on a long trip, it tends to hurt my shoulders and my neck a little bit. So I have to like switch hands, and drive with my left hand for a little while and then drive with my right hand, kind of switch up to alleviate some of that pain and some of that strain on my neck. And if they would have just put a telescoping steering wheel in here, it would have really gone a long way to making this truck more comfortable. So they kind of dropped the ball on some of the interior stuff. The safety features, I've gone over that already. This truck has some sweet safety features, but I found that, and maybe this is because it's the first implementation of them on a Nissan pickup like this, but I found that they don't always work predictably. So like the intelligent cruise control, for example, sometimes it'll like really try to slow the truck down when there's nothing going on in front of you. Maybe, could be raining a little bit, or maybe it just sees something in the roadway that tricks it or fools it into thinking that there's traffic ahead of you, and all of a sudden the truck will just slow down. And if you do come up on traffic and it slows down like it's supposed to, and then you change lanes, it'll downshift 2 or 3 gears and take off like a rocket ship. So it's not really predictable. It's not, ironed out perfectly. And I think Nissan's going to need a couple more model years to really get the safety features dialed in. It's nice that the truck has them though, but you have to be really mindful of that. You definitely don't want to be tricked into thinking that you can trust these things to keep you out of an accident. It's just an aid is all it is. And you don't want to let your mind be fooled into thinking that it's foolproof, because it's definitely not on this Nissan. You will also notice that there is no integrated trailer brake controller in this cab anywhere, and it is not even an option on the Nissan Frontier. So if you're going to tow, you're going to have to either wire up a trailer brake controller yourself, or do what I did and buy the Kurt Echo or something similar, where you can use Bluetooth and you don't have to wire anything at all. Also, let me put this in reverse here. You'll notice that there is no zoom function. I'm trying to get the camera out of the sun glare. There's no zoom function on here. So when you're backing up to a trailer to hook a trailer up, on most trucks that have a towing package these days, you can hit a button and just zoom in. It'll zoom right here to the rear bumper where your trailer ball is. And that way you can really do an easy job of lining up your trailer ball with your hitch ball, because you can zoom right in on that. And this one doesn't have that either. The resolution is better than the outgoing model, but it's still not great. I think, not 100% sure, but I think that when you go up to the premium package or the Pro 4X that has the 9-inch screen, I think the resolution is a little bit better on that one. This is the standard 8-inch, and the resolution's not all that great. So I would like to see some more camera angles, some zoom capability, some things to help guys who do pull trailers. Integrated brake controller option would be great. There's some things in this interior that are sweet, and I just really love them. But there's also some places where they kind of drop the ball, in my opinion. And another thing that's kind of a bummer is that there is no locking differential, and there's no option for a locking differential. Ford allows you to option the locker on just about any trim level. Jeep will allow you to do a track lock limited slip rear end, or you can go up to the Rubicon and get the locker. So you got a couple of options there. In the Nissan, unfortunately, the only way to get a locker is to go up to the top trim level, the Pro 4X. that's the only way to do it. It sure would have been nice to have some traction aids as standalone options on this truck. So I guess the moral of the story with the 2022 Nissan Frontier is that it's not an all-new truck. They use the same chassis, the same frame and suspension, and you know, like the A-arms, the brake rotors, the calipers. I mean, everything in the meat and bones of this truck is still the same, basically, that we've seen over the last 15, 16 years. So they didn't change any of that. They basically just put lipstick on the pig, so to speak. They redesigned it, made it look a lot better, added some safety tech, and said, here you go, here's your new truck. So that's sort of the story here. Now, the good thing about that is that they were able to keep costs down, and so the pricing is, you know, really in check on this truck. So that's the good thing about it. And I expect that this truck will probably be one of the more dependable, reliable trucks in the segment because of the fact that they didn't go all the way to square one and like redesign the whole thing, you know, and so you don't really have those brand new first model year bugs and jitters. It's basically a proven platform already, and they just updated some things. So over these next few years, you know, Ford's coming out with a new Ranger, Toyota's going to have a new Tacoma, so, you know, there's going to be some newcomers in the segment, and those probably will have some early bugs to work out. So if you're just looking for the most reliable, dependable truck, the Nissan's probably your ticket. And, you know, like I said, there's some good things about it, there's some bad things about it, and pretty much any truck in the segment, you could do these videos. Here's the good, here's the bad. There's always going to be things you would like to change with any truck. That's my experience. But overall, I really like the Frontier. I think it's a great little package, great little truck. I'm pretty happy with it so far. And we'll see, you know, after I rack up some miles hauling and towing and driving to work in the bad weather this winter and you know, putting it through its paces, we'll see how it does. I'm going to also give you a fuel economy report. I'm in the process of hand calculating fuel mileage. I'm doing a 50-50 split of city and highway driving. So we're going to see how close to that EPA window sticker number this truck can get. That's going to be interesting too. But yeah, stay tuned. You'll see some more Nissan Frontier content for a while. And we're going to do some other things around here too. It's not going to be all Nissan this summer, but you know, this is a new arrival here. So I just thought we'd kind of go over some things. If you got any questions about the Frontier, drop them below. And as always, I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks.